All right, we are going to start this deal. Hey, that's right. This section of it is more for questions and answers. So if you have a question, we have an extra microphone because this whole deal is going to, I guess, be on the website. Not really sure about the intentions of it. But it'll be put up for more resources. So make sure you clear your throat and get your best radio voice on, and we'll give you a microphone. But I'm going to pick up right where we left off in the last part of this, just to start out, just going over the church side and what it looks like on the church side. So as we said a minute ago, you're in the church part of the main tab. You're going to click into your church, and this is the table where you can get into many different things. And so one thing that I want us to notice is, say that your church signed up for 15 spots. And again, that means your campers and your sponsors. Once you get to 15 spots, it should not allow anyone to submit another registration form into your deal. Because we've had it in the past where a church says, hey, we're bringing 20 kids, and then they show up with 50 because one of their kids was sharing the link to everybody, and youth pastor didn't know it. So it will cut you off at the desired amount of reserved beds that you selected. If you are wanting to add more beds, if you are wanting to add more people to your camp, one of the things that you can do if the camp is still open, so for my specific church, we are registered for Oklahoma preteen camp. We will go to manage reservation. I will click on my church. Manage reservation. Wait a minute, I can't do this because I'm only at church. You contact us and we can add or take away however many spots you want to add or take away, if there is room left in that camp. So right
Jared,
now, Oklahoma
something to add is towards the end of March, we'll start making calls because that's when deposits are due. That way, if you signed up for extra, hopefully by the end of March, you can kind of get that deal figured out. And if need be, you can say, hey, I signed up 3 too many, and then we'll take those spots and maybe we can allocate it to a church that needs it. Right. Yes, ma'am. Hang on. Let me get you the mic that way.
What is the deadline that all the campers have to be signed up?
So that's kind of a floating deadline right now because this is year one of this deal. The beauty of this is that, say you have somebody show up to your church the day you're rolling out to go to camp and you didn't even know that they want to go to camp. Well, they can sit in the parking lot and do all their paperwork, and we'll have it before you even load up on the bus. So that's the beauty of it. But on the other side, it's like we need to know, for T-shirt stuff, for bed counts whenever we're giving your church the cabin assignment. So we're still kind of up in the air about that because we're waiting to see what the response is by the end of March whenever we ask for deposits and all that. But what we're going to say for Oklahoma, this is specifically for Oklahoma, is 2 weeks before your camp date. So for Teen 1, it'll be 2 weeks before the 13th. For Teen 2, it's going to be 2 weeks before the Teen 1 date. So it's all going to be that same date. Preteen is obviously going to be in July, so 2 weeks before that July 9th date. And that's going to be, I don't want that to be like kind of a fallback date, like, I can wait until then. Because, again, T-shirts are going to make a huge difference. We have to pre-order that stuff usually by the 1st of May, if not the middle of April. So we really need to know that stuff soon, but we're kind of waiting to see what the response is before we make a specific deadline. So great question, though. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
First question is, can you go in and edit somebody's paperwork?
Yeah, so as of right now, no. But we were on the phone with the software engineer yesterday morning, and we gave him a beautiful list of things. I'm pretty sure he's going to block my number, of things that we want to change about the website and the user experience. And so by the end of next week is kind of when we expect him to have all those changes done. All of the changes we want to make. And so what I'm going to do is send out an email with the list of different changes to everyone that signed up to camp, whether you're going to Oklahoma, Texas, or Alabama. and the things that affect the church coordinator, because it'll go out specifically to the church coordinators. So what we are going to most likely do is the same way whenever you go into churches. This Wi-Fi is slow. And you go in right here, it'll most likely be in this section, in this table where you can get to attendees, because you can already delete them right here. But then once you click into their profile, you'll be able to edit certain things there.
Most of your edits are just gonna be from your church coordinator.
Exactly. We're probably not going to give parents the access to edit those things, just church coordinators. So, but it will more than likely be in that window, the Wilderness Church or whatever church name window. So, and the second question?
The second question was, so when we go in and reserve our spots,
Yes.
we did all of our reservations or whatever, we had 2 sponsors that haven't registered yet, and the teen campus is already full, but that still holds their spots, so they can still go in and register, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And so one thing I do want to show y'all, and that's a great question, because as of right now, it does not show a church coordinator how many spots they reserved, but that is one of the things that we're editing in this next little push. So right here on this churches tab where it shows, church name, verified, created on, and then actions, which is where you can go in and kind of edit some of the church information. We're going to add a section in that shows the amount of people you reserved and the camp that you reserved for. Because I had several people call me and they say, hey, I just signed up for 30 spots, but don't know if it went anywhere, because it didn't give you any kind of verification. So that will be there, and yes, their spot is held in that 15 or whatever number. Yes, sir.
Will the church coordinator get a ding through an email to know a notification that someone has registered?
So they should get a notification. Me personally, that email that is
As
for
of
our
this
church-
time, no.
Oh, no? Okay.
No, because I registered 2 kids the other day, my own, and as a church coordinator, I did not get an email saying that
Yeah,
they
but
registered.
So no, it didn't? Okay,
No.
that's something we'll add.
Yes.
That's something we'll add to.
An email was for a sponsor. They received an email because they have to do their training.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason we're having this whole, hey, let's sit down, is because that's stuff that not that necessarily we didn't think about, but it's like, oh yeah, that's important. Let's make for sure that the churches know this. So that's why this is so vital, to get y'all's questions and y'all's feedback on it, because we just
Right.
100%. So
Well, we've been
y'all are helping
brainchilding-
us. Y'all are helping us build this thing.
Right. Yeah, because this has been an idea for 2 or 3 years now, and so it's kind of seeing it all come together. We're like, yes, finally, but then we're like, oh my gosh, what all do we miss? So,
So the other thing real quick, I know I'm full of questions.
no, that's great.
So when I went in and registered, just put the numbers down, I went in and just added everybody in. But technically, it's we as the administrator, whatever, holds the spots, but then the families can go in and create their own login and register their kids.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
ma'am. And
Yeah,
then that
correct.
way it gets that parent signature on there. So when they check those boxes, that's that parent verifying all the info and that kind of stuff.
Have the parent go in and register their child so that they're verifying, the permission checkbox, they're putting their name in, and it gets y'all as church coordinators off the hook from having to chase down all that information.
Yeah, I was just at church because I felt that pressure, like, oh my gosh, if you give the responsibility to the parent to go sign your kid up, they're gonna miss a spot.
That's the beauty of that church code or
Right,
QR
exactly.
code, is you can send that out and give that to the parent.
Yes.
And the parent can sit down in less than 10 minutes and have their account.
And
And-
I know that now, so I was at church, everybody like, okay, sign up.
Right. And
So,
you
but
can
you
see
had
when
the
they sign
parent
up.
there with you doing it. Okay, so that's not what it's intended for. That works 100%
Yes.
because you have that parent there. But just know, we understand when it comes to camp and you are that coordinator, that there's a lot that you have to do on your own, that there's a lot that you have to sign up. And if we can put some of that off on those parents, which they should be adult enough to do that, and I understand they're not always, and so there's going to be cases that you have to sit down and hold their hands, or you're going to have an older couple that wants nothing to do with technology. We get that. But it's intended for the end user, the parents, to do all that paperwork, and then it takes it off of you or whoever, and now it's just a checklist. Yes, I have everything.
It's good to know that it holds your spot, so then for
how we've operated in the past, except for because in the past we've had that reserved bed count that was way earlier in the year, and then we didn't know what was happening until later in the registration process. We would have you just tell us how many you had signed up. We didn't collect any data. We didn't collect any paperwork. And so for us now, our real number is real registration forms. You don't have to have them alphabetized and bring them to us for us to know that that person is coming to camp. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, I wasn't even looking on this way.
So y'all are already a few steps ahead of us on payments. How are y'all in your churches collecting deposits and payments and keeping up with that?
So, I mean, that's going to vary for every church. For us specifically, we have a lot of kids that can't afford camp. So we are doing a huge fundraiser, but for the ones that can afford camp, we have them write checks or cash or however directly to our church. And we use a separate account for camp or for youth camp. And then we, specifically for our church, are going to use the billing section and pay just from our church credit card or debit card and pay for the deposit. And then whenever we show up for camp, I'm going to bring that church debit card and pay for camp.
And Jared and Homer might correct me, but for this year, it's going that part of the church payment is going, or payment's going to come through the church. Now, in the future, we may have it where each kid can pay individually, but our collection is going to come through the church itself. So for now, it would be best that if you have them give the money to the church, collect it in your funds, however y'all do that, and then pay us all in, or however the increments of payment is. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, 2 years down the road, it might be when that parent signs up, that parent can pay right then. We're not there yet.
And that's something that it's obviously not going to happen this year, but something that will be an option for you to add into your church. If you don't want that there, if you know that 95% of your students are not going to pay for camp, they're going to have to be sponsored, then obviously you don't have to add that part in. But if you know that most of your kids are going to pay for camp on their own, you're going to have an option to add that payment window in for a parent to pay.
Talk about the deposit, like when we're going to finalize those invoices.
Yep.
And then final payment.
Absolutely. And so that was kind of the next part of this. Right now, if you have a church user account and you click on billing, it's going to look empty. There's not going to be anything there because we are still gaining data from how many people are signing up for camp, for reserved bed counts, for camp-specific reservations, and all of those things. On March 23rd, we are going to finalize and send out camp deposits. And so what that's going to look like is you will get an email to your church user email, and you will also get a line item in this billing section of in this invoice section of the billing window. And so that is going to give you the option to pay now. And so I'm just going to hope Tristan can undo this because I'm going to go ahead and finalize my deposit right now.
I wouldn't finalize it, because once you finalize it, you can't edit it.
You can delete it, can't you? It's probably a good call. We're learning that Stripe deal because this was last week that we added Stripe. So, but you will see an option. It will show you the invoice number, obviously invoice type, church, camp, and event, and it is broken down by $50 per head. So that's sponsor and camper. That is the amount that will be due for the deposit. You'll have the option to pay at that point. Now, debit card is obviously an easiest way to pay using Stripe, but you can also link a bank account to it. It is a one-time deal. We're not going to be able to access your funds or anything like that. It is a one-time deal. It just meets the requirements of that invoice. It does not draw anything other than that. And the next time that we do a payment, it has to be taken again. So it's not saved or anything like that.
Jared, will you talk about your experience with Stripe? Because I know your church uses it, and it's something new to...
Yeah, so our church uses it on a pretty small scale as far as merchandise, T-shirts, stuff like that. But Stripe is extremely easy and secure if you are using it in the sense of a debit card or a bank account. Now, for those of y'all here that I know your church is going to send a check. I know that's going to happen. We've already actually had one church do that. Just please let us know. Email us, send that check into AFCC, email us, let us know, because we have to go on the backside and credit your account, and it's a whole process for us. So please let us know if that is the absolute thing you have to do. If you can pay with debit card, credit card, bank account, please make it easier on us and do that, because it is as easy as literally pressing one button and typing in your card information. Day one of camp is when the final invoice will be made live. So for all of us that are showing up to camp, the day one of camp registration is going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be 7 different tables set up. At least for Oklahoma, this is how it is. It's probably going to be 1 or 2 stations, or 2 or 3 stations, where you check medicine in, you make sure that all the kids on your list are either there or not there, and then the last part's going to be payment. So it's going to be a very shortened, very sweet part of this process, is that we don't have to make sure every single piece of paper is there in alphabetical order, because if that person's name is there and if their form is submitted, then all the information's there. And then the payment window, once you walk up to that last part of it and I get the church information, I will finalize and send that invoice right there. And if you have a debit card, you can pay it right there in that moment, or a check, we can pay it right there in that moment. So it's going to be very nice, this whole process for day one of camp, because it is going to simplify the registration process extremely. Any questions about the billing stuff? I know it's going to be weird because we're all figuring it out at the same time. All those deposits will be due on the 30th. So you will have a full 7 days to pay the deposits. Yeah, March 30th. Full 7 days to pay all those deposits. So I would start talking to whoever's writing the check or whoever's giving you a card now, if I were you. Any questions about anything we've gone over so far?
I guess technically, yes.
Okay.
So you said it was completed 7th through graduated seniors.
Yes.
So when the parents are registering, if they aren't technically in that bracket, because I thought it was going into 7th grade and going into seniors, will it not let them register if they're not at the age? Okay.
No, that's totally fine. And to be completely honest with you, my church, we break down in youth as 6th grade to 12th grade. And so if we think that a 6th grader is old enough to be in with the youth kids, they're coming to camp with us. So it's not gonna ixnay them or cancel them out if they're in 6th grade. Yeah, no, it's
So, like at my church,
a good question.
I always talk to the parent, and because I get that question all the time. I'm like, you know your kid. Is your kid going to be able to run with 7th through 12th grade? And majority of the time they'll say yes or no. And a lot of times it's no, and it's like, sign them up for preteen camp. And we leave that open to interpretation. Everybody wants us to make it a hard and fast rule. But you got some kids that are going into 7th grade that are 300 pounds that doesn't need to run with 3rd graders. And we get that. That's the reason we leave it open for that interpretation. So best rule of thumb, there's probably not one. It's what's best for you. You know your kids, and the parents know their kids.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it wasn't going to be like, sorry, your kid is too young to go here.
Yeah, there's not a cutoff with an age or anything on the software.
Okay.
Now, if
Now, we're gonna
a
double
fourth,
check that. Yeah.
yeah, if a 4th grader signs up, we'll be able to see that and say, oh, that kid cannot go to teen camp. But if they put down that they're 7th grade or whatever, then that's what it is.
And same thing with sponsor ages, because sponsors have to be 21 years old or older. We've had sponsors in the past come to preteen camp that were 15, and that's at that point a safety issue. We can't have that happen. So we're going to be looking at sponsor ages as well, and making sure that sponsors are 21 and older, just for paperwork and legal purposes, because they are held accountable to the child protective training and background checks like anybody else is. So, any questions about anything software wise? I can't believe that.
Jared, talk about as their kids get registered and they have a full list of attendees of how they can export that information out of the.
Yeah, that's what I forgot. That's what I was going to do earlier. Yep. So that is what I was going to do earlier. Again, going back into the same deal I was talking about, this is kind of the main page for your church. You have your events, you have your attendees, and you have registered members again. In each one of these windows of this table, you have these two little buttons right here. This is your export, and this is your column chooser. So your column chooser is I'm going to go to attendee because it makes it easier. Your column chooser is going to allow you to select certain fields or properties of the information that's available so that you can find a person easier. Obviously, there's a search bar. If you're looking for somebody specific, just type their name in. But if you are wanting to alphabetize, you can come right here and say, okay, I'm alphabetizing it with that little arrow. I don't know if you can see it or not. Right behind my cursor, there's that little arrow, and it will alphabetize them. Or you can do it the backwards way if you wanted to unalphabetize it. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. Same thing with last name, although all four of these are from the same family. And so you can choose the camp name, you can choose last name or event name if you wanted to sort it that way. There's several different ways that you can sort it, and on this next update we might add a couple more ways. I'm not sure on that. If you want to export all that info, all you got to do is click that little button, and I don't have Microsoft Excel on my computer, so I'm trying to figure out how I can not have to pay for that to export my stuff. But nah, I'm good. Yeah, I can do it to Sheets, but it's just a longer process. But if you have Microsoft Excel, you press that button, it downloads it. You just open it up directly onto Microsoft Excel. If you have Google Sheets, you have to save it in your downloads and enter it into your Google Sheets, and it works the same way. It's just an extra step. But in that table is something else that you can do on your side of things if you are that church that is having a lot of students bring money in. Something that we do a lot of times is we make a spreadsheet with some of the basic information, first name, last name, if their paperwork's complete in the past, which now it will automatically be complete, and T-shirt size, and if they've paid deposits and if they've paid in full. So I'll add 2 columns into that Excel sheet, and if they're paid deposit or paid in full, you can just black that little spot out on the Excel sheet. Any questions about either of those? Yes, ma'am.
It's only gonna export your attendees that are registered, that have completed their registration.
At that current moment, yeah. Right.
No, ma'am, not as current the way Excel works. Every time you export it, you have to compare them or something like that, as of right this second.
And honestly, I don't know. I'll talk to the software engineer and see if we can add that into that column chooser. But I'm not sure if that's some data that we're capturing currently. So, but I will see if that's something that we are capturing. Sorry, we're getting so many incomplete sentences in this recording. This is gonna be great.
I would also say, as long as you don't hit the delete button, mess with the system. Go through, change your filters, export it from one spot to another, because you're not going to mess anything up. As long as you don't hit that little delete button, and then if you mess something up, call us, because it is saved to an extent. Now, don't go through deleting a bunch just to see if it deletes, because that's going to put a lot of work on us. But in all honesty, see what you can figure out with it, because the more you're in it, the more you're messing with it, the better you're going to be at it. And then show somebody else, like, hey, if you want to help us, this is how we do it, and pull it up and show them, because our goal is to make it unbreakable, is our goal.
Yeah.
To make it director proof.
Yeah, that's the biggest part. So does anybody else have any questions? I just want to show y'all one thing that I number one, thank you all so much for being willing to be a part of the system, for being willing to be coachable. Because this number right here, this is what we have a week into camp. So we have 61 total churches signed up for AFCC camp so far. We have 75 church coordinators and 336 attendees. Now, this was in the 180 range this morning. So people are using this process, and it's because y'all are willing to learn it, y'all are willing to ask questions, and it's only going to get better from here. Our dream, our goal for this process is to make it to where registration is the easiest and most basic part of camp, to where any church can sign up, no matter if they've got 2 kids or if they're bringing 200. So thank y'all so much. We want to make this as easy as possible. If you have any suggestions or any kind of questions, just reach out to us. This is a work in progress.
I will also say Jared did a good job on the videos. So when you have questions, always refer back to those videos. You can pause them. You can work your way through it. So as you watch that video, you can work your way through it. Tell your parents to watch those videos. And so they can go step by step. Okay, it says do this. I can pause it, do that step, and then move on to the next, because we tried to put everything we can in those videos. That way it's answered right there. Now, if you run across a question that's not answered by those videos, do not hesitate to reach out. You want to show them the question mark on the deal? Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that did that, to be completely honest
Yep.
with you.
So if you hit the question mark, it automatically links, and you can ask a question, and it emails us. And then we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Now, if you say, hey, I need to fix this, it may be a week or so before we get it fixed, and then we'll let you know. Don't think we're ignoring you. You just got to remember how many users we have in this system and how many people are going through it and how much we've got to do. Plus you're a youth pastor. I'm a fireman. We have stuff on the side. So we're not ignoring you. Just give us a week or so, and by then we should be able to get back to you. And hopefully we fixed your problem, or you can say, hey, I figured it out myself.
For that church user, I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't go over it. This is where you would find the church coordinator video. So it's that top button right there, watch tutorial. It's a totally different video than for a parent or sponsor. But same thing for a parent or sponsor. They can see that video here, or when they sign in, if they've made it that far and they're like, oh crap, I don't want to sign out, just to see more of the video and sign back in. It's in that same location once they're signed in, that watch tutorial up there at the top. So any questions at all about camp, about registration, about sponsors, students? We're done? That's never happened in the history of ever.
You were that good, Jared.
I don't know if that's the thing.
Well, the deal is
I think I just confused them so much.
They've already
can't handle
watched
any
your
more of it.
face several times.
Yes, sadly.
Why don't you zoom in and show everybody that face?
No.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Here you go. For the camera.
Once we do the billing, once we pay for the deposits and all that stuff, if we use a debit card, does it have an invoice or a receipt right there that we can print?
Yeah, you'll be emailed a receipt.
Okay.
I don't honestly know what format that's in, like if it's in a PDF or however that shows up. It'll be emailed. Emailed, yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. Anybody else?
I had to get my budget lady in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Oh, did I mention that you can go to the Child Protective Training quiz from the front page earlier? From right here?
Negative.
So if you have a sponsor that signed up and they got mad because they failed their Child Protective Training quiz and they just decided to close the computer down.
Find
and
another sponsor.
Not revisit it.
Oh, no.
When they go to the AFCC page, before they even sign in, they can click on right above sign up is this here to take the Child Protective Training quiz. Click here to start. So they can click right there. It will ask them their last name, their date of birth, and it will link them back to their profile. So they can take that quiz there. It's just another easy way because sometimes it's an act of pulling teeth to get sponsors to do that. So trying to make it as easy as possible. If y'all don't have any questions, I just want to share with y'all, obviously the theme for this year's masterpiece, Ephesians 2:10. We are extremely excited. I know on the Oklahoma side, our Wrangler program is firing on all cylinders. Hopefully you got to listen to Ty earlier. But if you are a youth pastor or if you are part of a youth group, please encourage students from 16, 17 to 20 to be part of the Wrangler program. Get something started in your youth group to disciple those kids, to start leading them in a way to lead others, because it is so incredibly fruitful. We had a pastor processing at camp last year with 7, is that right? 5 of our Wranglers that only came through Wrangler or through AFCC Wrangler trainings. So this program isn't just for a 1 or 2 week time slot of the summer. This is to train them for ministry in whatever capacity it looks like.
And another testament to the Wrangler program is Jared started as a Wrangler. He was a camper, and then he went to Wrangler, and now him and I are directors. So it's just showing that this program is raising up leaders and youth pastors. Yeah, because Dalton Creech, that gave the deal on the youth pastors earlier, he was a Wrangler. So there's so much into it because ultimately they are the church. They are the church. And it's easy to say, all right, you've rotated out of the youth program. Maybe we got a singles program. Maybe we got a young adults program. Maybe we don't have anything. Figure it out. But if we can continue to disciple these kids, they're going to be the ones running this camp. They're going to be the ones sitting where y'all are sitting. And then you can sit back and say, man, God's good.